Hi Decoders. This week we're looking at neurodivergence, the gifts and the karma that are offered there for the whole world. You, me, everyone. Hi, I'm Karen Trace. Welcome to Humans Decoded, a story of hobbits, fairies, elves, dwarfs, gnomes, and humans. If you get lost at any point, there is a deep dive on all the different avatars in episode 1. It includes notes. Thank you for joining us in a fun little chat about the vast potential of our human makeup. Hi Leela, hi Cami.
Hi girls, hi decoders.
Hi everybody, hi. I'm just really happy to be here today.
Hello everyone. Hello. Did you guys love the myth of healing, Decoders? We fucking love that episode so much.
My favorite ever. Best work that ever came out of us.
Still vibing off it. Like
hard.
Yep.
Yeah. If you missed it by any chance, episode 141, the myth of healing, is our swan song. It's our gold standard. It's the peak, the mountain peak. Okay, let me go into this because this is one of my favorite topics. Because I love the human brain so much. It has so many glorious shapes it can take. And I love how the Gen Zs use neurodivergence is like a cool diagnosis. Like you get points on the cool meter. Kudos for being neurospicy. I just love it. And I love how pretty much any doctor anywhere in the world is very happy to offer that diagnosis to anyone.
Yeah. I mean, I was diagnosed.
What? You were? Autism?
No. They gave me ADD. You know, if I had diagnosed myself, yes, I would have gone with autism, obviously. But no. They gave me ADD.
I would have guessed autism too.
I know. But, you know, I didn't take it very seriously, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, good. A quirky sense of humor and personal style isn't a tell for autism.
I have been waiting for ages to do this episode because I have so many questions about it. So I'm really happy we're here. There's always been this curiosity about neurodiversity. I grew up with a sister who was diagnosed with ADHD, and it was pretty severe. And I witnessed her functioning being compromised to an extent. And in comparison to her, I always appeared sort of, quite functional. Whether that's true or not, but in relative terms. And so there's always, does Leela have autism? Do I have ADD? There's a little bit of a question.
Oh my god.
I've never had a niggling fear for either of you, I will say right now.
But I think it is relatable that everybody's got that little bit of like, ooh, did I miss something? And at the same time, through all this, healing work, my capacity has increased exponentially over the years. And, as Kieran says, Source is a very good executor. So there is a question, what is it when there's a genuine mental health issue versus, good old pain body? And like Kieran was saying, nowadays it's so popular to get a diagnosis, but also to self-diagnose. So, you have a sort of chat bot doctor at the tip of your hands, and you've probably consulted it a bunch of times. It also seems to be more popular for doctors to hand out diagnoses as well. And somewhere in there it might, I don't know, like, who's to say what the accuracy of any of that feedback? Like, Leela's not really autistic.
You don't have ADD.
You're right. So it does feel like a topic worth decoding.
But either of you, should you be wanting it, could go and get a diagnosis of both at any point. Myself included.
Just for funsies.
Just for funsies, In my family, ADD is really present. And my mother was an autism specialist. So I got to grow up around a lot of beautiful, unique brains. And if we're looking at ADD, ADHD, and autism, we're talking about things on a spectrum. It's a complex neural network system. And it can present itself either high functioning at one part of the spectrum or anywhere along that spectrum, ending up in low or even non-functional. So when we're talking about neurodivergence, we're talking about spectrums. We're talking about general diagnoses. There's not like a specific gene or a blood test. It's a very general label with a big category. But having grown up around it, it's through comparison and constant contact that one begins to see the rhythm and pattern of a very distinctive brain process and instinct process. For instance, I have a cousin who is mid-level on the spectrum of ADD, and he's high functioning in the sense that he can live independently and have normal relationships, but not successfully or happily. He needs behavioral support in order to achieve that. So in his case, he gets it through his wife, and that's how he can get happiness and fulfillment in those relationships and in that independence, because he's midline on the spectrum, versus my baby sister, who is also ADD, and she's much more high functioning on the spectrum. So she's right at that other end of quite high functioning. So she's very capable of living alone, having normal relationships, and she can have fulfillment and happiness. She doesn't require behavioral supports, but it's nice to have it. In her case, it's her husband, and actually her children also. It's genetic, and so her children are on the spectrum, and one is quite closer to low functioning. But the community of that family is a lot of behavioral supports built in, and that's how there's a lot more fun and joy for my sister. There's inbuilt there. But I also lived and worked in Silicon Valley for a spell, and that has the largest population of autism on the planet. And again, these are genetic. And a lot of founders of, Forbes 500, like the top companies in the world, a lot of the founders who built them are on the autism spectrum. And because it's genetic, they have children that are autistic, and the children need support, and their parents have the money and the staff and the crew to build and create big supportive organizations. There's a very sweet man in that area. He's the son of the Baskin Robbins ice cream founder. His name's Ocean Robbins, and he has twins with low functioning autism. So they're nonverbal. They can't be independent in any way. They can't be independent in the care of their bodies. Like, they can't feed themselves. They can't go to the bathroom by themselves. He built a whole program to support non-functional autism, low-functioning autism, that's incredibly compassionate. It's beautiful. It's called Sunrise. And it was born out of his working with his twins and witnessing gifts and miracles for his whole community because of the neurodivergency. So in that program, he really got turned on, or through his own life, to the bigger gifts available for all of humanity and the karma involved. So, I've always been around a lot of neurodivergence, and when you're consistently for long periods of time near the energy, you can see it's moving very differently. It's a different neural network than neuronormative.
I'm not sure I've ever been around actual autism. Like, I grew up next to a school for special needs children, so we always had like Down syndrome kids at our table that came to have lunch with us. So I'm much more used to that. But actual autism, I don't know. I know a few people, including a couple of clients, who say they're autistic, but then when I work with them, in my energy healing sessions, their pain body systems or their system of baggage, it doesn't actually feel different from other so-called normative pain body energy systems. However, I do have a couple of clients that say they have ADHD, and it's a little challenging to get them, really into the body or really into the moment. But with a few supports, it is a bit easier. And in the end, for the work I'm doing either way, it is about allowing these little entangled places we call pain bodies to disentangle in source love or in source energy. But I would really like to gather some more insights here alongside our beautiful decoders.
Well, as we've been saying, it's an amazing gift for all of humanity, for the whole culture. These brains have a profound impact on human evolution. In the past, it was thought of as a disability, but in many, many ways, in reality and truth, it's a super ability. What we've seen that, really since the beginning of time, every leap forward in human evolution has been pioneered and ushered in by a neurodiverse individual. So we go through times, since the beginning of time, the list is enormous, and we can go back a little bit of time, and you've got high functioning ones like Einstein, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Mozart, Beethoven, the Currys, I don't know, pick a date. And then go to the big jump in evolution for humanity there and look at the primary movers of that evolution, and you're going to see neurodiverse people. And we see it in sports. Alex Hummel, the rock climber, he has really leaped forward in not just his sport, but all sports, with new definitions of what is the high, what is that gold standard, right? In football, very, very famous quarterbacks, running backs, the best in the world, ADD. Think Patrick Mahomes, think John Robinson. In basketball, the greatest. And the neurodivergent help us redefine what is possible. Then that path is made, and the neuronormative can follow and evolve. So like Ocean Robin Sunrise with his very low functioning twins, that path got blazingly outlined for him and his whole community. His father, the Baskin Robbins founder, and his mother, the whole community that was involved there, blazingly clear the need to evolve. I don't want to go into too much detail here. And obviously, I'm not a neuroscientist, but the neurodiverse brain is actually a different shape. For instance, and for simplicity's sake, let's just use this language, they're more symmetrical. The left and the right hemispheres are symmetrical, which ironically means there's less overdevelopment of, say, language processors. So usually an overdevelopment or bigger left brain than right is what most neuronormative people have. So if you're neuronormative, you have a bigger left hemisphere. That's where your big language processor is. But if you're neurodivergent, you don't. Your hemispheres are more symmetrical. They take pictures. We have pictures of many pictures of obviously neurodiverse brains. Also, there's a lot of neural networks, so these connections to the frontal lobe, and those with neurodiversities, they don't have a lot of connections to the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is where we have our emotional regulation, so that's where we do a lot of relationship, emotional regulation, social interaction. So in a neurodiverse brain, there's not a lot of connection there. However, there's an incredibly sophisticated connection to other lobes that neuronormative brains don't have. So, for instance, let's take a normative brain of a 5-year-old, of a 5-year-old, and then an Asperger, so an autistic brain of a 5-year-old, and get them both to draw a horse. And the 5-year-old drawing of the horse is general shapes, little blobs, like a long blob for a face and a long oval blob for the body, right? The same 5-year-old that is neurodiverse, the Asperger's, can draw muscle and hair and the pattern flow of the hair because there's so much capacity for detail. So the same 5-year-olds, but one is picking up in a very, very sophisticated way, specialized information. And the other, with the normative, doesn't have those same connections. So along all of the diagnoses, along all of the spectrums, there's some intelligence. There are gifts. And, Leela, we can add Down syndrome to this category as well, in a way, because it is a specialized brain. And we see with Down syndrome incredibly compassionate beings, beings that are just love forward, very, very direct, simple connections. It's a very elegant networked brain. It's a bit like homeopathy, just the essentials, A little bit is the big power, the essential, So it's a brain that's wired for pure love. It reconnects itself back into that same circuit. Our culture has managed to peel off some of the story of these unique brains being less than, being a disability. And in doing so, we've empowered these people and their families, their whole communities, to look for the gift. And therefore, now considerably more capacity is being explored, which is in fact the gift. So the more we can peel off stigmas, the more we can see the gift. The more that we see the gift amplifies itself, and then the capacity amplifies itself.
I mean, that sounds like a really positive change. The conversation seems to be shifting from the taboo of having a neurodivergence to, okay, this is a uniquely wired brain, and that uniquely wired brain has a unique purpose. So no stigma there. We can do away with it and instead embrace the gift.
I remember at the first retreat I went to with you, Kieran, there was a lovely man with ADD. And I remember you saying ADD brains have instant mastery. And I definitely see that with my ADD clients. Like, they get it in a split second. They get it. It's not difficult for them to get it. It's just a little bit difficult to then sort of stay with it.
Yeah, because the brain isn't built to stay with it. They don't have the regulation. That's the thing about the brain. It absorbs, it masters with a lot of detail, and then it moves on. The ADD brain.
Okay, so I still have the question. Is it pain body? Is it neurodiversity? And if you have one of these neurodiversities, how does healing affect it?
Okay, these are really good questions. Let's address them individually. Is it a pain body or is it neurodiversity? Okay, so that's what everybody's asking, right? Because it's not always obvious and really easy to mix it up. Like, if I just watch one episode of Love on the Spectrum, I'm like, oh my God, I am autistic. And that's the thing with everyone who watches that show, right? Like, I watch it in groups of people and we've all been like, turn it off. I think I'm autistic. So it's really easy to fall into another's mindset. We know this about emotion. Like, if somebody's really in a rage or really in grief, it's really easy to fall into those mindsets. Anyways, it's really over time and in comparison that becomes obvious that one is just a quirky set of patterns. Some of them are dysfunctional and they really could use some support versus an actual neurodiversity. So then the tragedy is, like, how are you going to know that? Like, a doctor cannot help you. They will happily give you the diagnosis. Just ask them. And you're going to happily give it to yourself. And your friends may also be trying to give it to you often. Your parents, you know what I mean? Like, so how are you going to know? And you know what? I'm just going to go on record right here and say I don't have a problem with that. This is exactly why we're losing this stigma by making it a popular opinion, making it commonplace, making it a credit, an extra jewel in your crown, by getting diagnosed everywhere. Whether you do or not, we're helping to normalize this beautiful and very real neurodiversity. So be it.
I love that shift in perspective so much. And I kind of see the effects of that somewhat ripple through the film world. Because I work with a lot of Gen Zers. So the film industry, at least in the UK, but probably worldwide, has historically been dominated by white males. And they often bring in a hierarchy where people are really tough on each other. Like, you have to earn your stripes and go through the proper ladder because I did that and that's the way I got treated. So I'm going to treat you this way and blah, 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 blah. And inside of the film industry, we have a job title called gaffer, which means the person who's in charge of putting up all the lights. And for some reason, I love you gaffers, but they often have the worst reputation on set for being the most old school, because I think if you become a gaffer, it's likely you'll do that until you retire. So we still have a lot of the older generation still around. However, now that Gen Z people have joined the workforce, they're starting to change it in, I think, really positive ways. For example, Gen Zers came up with a term called a snag. So instead of asking for a gaffer, you now ask for a snag, which stands for a soft new age gaffer, which means someone who's not going to complain about, there's too many women on set and why has everybody got a funky gender? So they're asking for people with like open and diverse attitudes. And this definitely didn't happen when I was coming up in the film industry. It's just such a cool change. And apparently you can also just have a mental health day. So if you're finding it too much and feeling overwhelmed, you just say, hey, I need a day off. I'm having a mental health day. And, it's fine. So it's, just so wonderful to see so much diversity and agency that is coming in. It's just fabulous. So I just really love how people are proudly calling out their neurospiciness and just kind of making it their own.
I love what y'all are saying. However, let me bring this in. If I'm a parent and I have a kid with a pretty severe autism diagnosis, for instance, or ADHD, it might not feel like that. It might not feel like, oh, it's such a cool diagnosis, or thank God for this diversity. It might feel quite real that, this is challenging to parent such a child. And maybe some of you listening are in that position, whether it's your child or your spouse or maybe a friend. Can we share a few practical supports here?
Yeah, it's a really great point. In a way, it goes back to Cammie's other question, the other part of her question, like, is this just a pain body or is this real neurodiversity, right? Like, okay, so real neurodiversity, there are these deep-seated challenges that will block fulfillment and happiness, like block relationshipal interaction. And this is a difficult thing to say in a way from outside of that, because it's like, who doesn't have a block, in communication or relationship or fulfillment or happiness? Like, we all have them. But it's like, let me use a metaphor here. It's like we all get sore feet. So wouldn't it be great when we're going for a hike to have some walking sticks? That's really helpful. But that's very different than being in a wheelchair. And I know a number of social media influencers, honestly, everybody listening, you all do. Some I've been following for years and years and years who recently got a diagnosis of autism. They absolutely do not have autism. But they would do really well with walking sticks. So it was really great that anybody will give them that diagnosis. But if you're a parent, and this is your child, I mean, horror stories from the past are like it's ADD, your child's so wild, they can't sit still. It's impossible to get play dates. It's impossible for my child to go anywhere else. Nobody invites him to the birthday parties. You can't go to Disneyland. We have to put them on Ritalin. We've got to medicate them. The world is too overstimulating. And that child grows up with this enormous sense that there's something wrong with them. They're simply not good enough. They're always in the corner at the classroom. They always have to have this like isolated, different, separatist, there's a behavioral support in the classroom, but that's off to the side. And that's what it used to look like if you were neurodivergent. Because if we have, let's use autism, we have unbelievable sensitivities, unbelievable meltdowns. Again, that very, very, very detailed brain. The brain is wired for detail. So the texture of a carpet can just be enormously triggering. It can be too much. And then there's a wild meltdown because there's not much connection to the frontal lobe, which is emotional regulation. And we can have hours and hours long because, it's too much, right? And we can have very loud, sort of strange, self-stimulating behaviors, right? Which is self-soothing behaviors that they'll go into. Little stims, they call that, but they're tweaking their fingers or tweaking their ear or poking at something as a way to just direct their brain away from all the texture on the carpet. So the parents are at their wits' end. And imagine infants. Some children will scream their entire infancy because they're that overwhelmed. Normal little baby things, onesies and bibs, or the sounds of the house, or the smart meters. It's too overwhelming for those little detailed brains. But nowadays, if you have a child that's been screaming for more than 2 weeks, you can go on Instagram and be like, what do I do, guys? And you will get 100 parents writing to you saying, go get an autism diagnosis. And this is so common and lovely. You have on Instagram, they'll be very detailed. Your child might have autism. You're going to have to figure out what supports are irritating them. What sheets, what cloths do you have? What lights do you have in the room? There's a lot of support. If you happen to be in Silicon Valley in the USA, there's so many supports there. But there's podcasts around it. The telepathy tapes, which is one of the most famous podcasts, is really beautiful. It talks about autism quite a bit. But there's books all about it now. You can go to Amazon and read about connection to God and autism, how this super detailed brain can be this high frequency for source fields. So just there's so much support now, which is essential because you cannot do this in a nuclear family. You cannot work with neurodiversity successfully with just mom and pop. You need aunties, you need uncles, you need others, you need babysitters and teachers and mentors. You need the whole village. And maybe that's not even enough support because these neurodiverse people are requiring us to evolve, to find better and stronger connections, to create supports for relationship, for communication. That's what they're doing. And, more and more and more supports are coming.
Cool. So it feels like a shift in perspective from sort of I'm all alone with this story to a broadening of your field of view, so to speak, to notice all the support that is here. A shift in our awareness from being very caught up in a story, kind of blind to supports, towards disentangling, which is something that we just keep pointing out in this podcast, regardless of, what the quote-unquote topic is.
Yeah, it's true. It's easy to believe, like we say in England, that everything's gone tits up in the world. But the truth is, we have made these wonderful advances, including losing the stigma and democratizing very niche support. So, kind of following up on my next question, how does it relate to your karma? I remember my ex-husband niece had a very acute disability, so she's nonverbal and likely to be nonverbal for the rest of her life. She can't live independently. And I remember talking to Kieran about it, and she said this is part of, her mom's karma and the dad's karma and everyone's karma around her.
Great. This circles back to that question, right? So it's a complex answer. Is it a pain body? Is it a real neurodivergent state? But what is the karma, So if I'm the one who needs walking sticks, what I like is it speaks to a continuum of core belief systems, right? So karma is this belief system you're carrying through multiple lifetimes, and it can indulge itself. You can have a whole lifetime of indulging a whole belief system of not worthy, but you can also disentangle it, but that's what's creating the karma. That's the root of the karma. So let's look at a belief system like I don't belong. Cam, that one so well, right? There's something fundamentally wrong with me. When it's a pain body, you just need some sticks, because that particular pain body is really loud and entangled, and maybe it's amplifying everywhere in your life. For example, I'm really quirky and I have weird habits and I get overwhelmed and I'm too sensitive. And then it's like, phew, my doctor told me I'm autistic, phew. But if you're not actually neurodivergent, you can untangle not belonging, which is going to be so healing, and then have a much better relationship and communication interactions, much better levels of fulfillment personally. Overall, all of those things are going to up level. You're going to untangle a belief system, and it's going to equal a lot more success. People who are actually neurodivergent, same karmic belief system, I don't belong. And it's amplifying, really important, to a magnitude, though, that they cannot unravel and heal. So they could unravel, right? You can unravel not belonging in your relationships, but if you're neurodivergent, you don't have those frontal lobe connections. Your brain isn't wired for complex language that is required for these mature relationships. So it won't matter. It's not going to change. You will need external behavioral support. You have a very deeply sophisticated and elegantly wired brain in one way that's outstanding. And then the room in your brain is used up there. There's no more space for that relationship cues, emotional cues. You will always need external behavioral supports to make up that part. It's not going to change the fundamental behavioral supports required when you untangle it. So if you're not actually neurodivergent, you can really, let's go back to my metaphor, strengthen your calf muscles, your knees, and then walk without sticks and have a lot of fun up and down all those mountains. But if you're in a wheelchair, we can do as many stretches as you want, but you're not going to get out of that wheelchair.
So you're saying that being in a wheelchair, or say having this one room in your brain hyper-developed, which would also then mean having the other room less developed, all of this is still serving karmically.
Yeah. It's also very similar. It's the same karmic belief systems. It's essential for the karma because, we're using the belief system of I don't belong, right? So both individuals, the neurodiverse and the neuronormative have the same belief system, but neuronormative can unravel, do a lot of healing work, and then gain ability. Where the neurodiverse can do a lot of unraveling, can do a lot of healing, they will not gain ability. However, it is still essential karmic movement, meaning for the lifespan of that belief system, which is bigger than you here right now, it's important Because if you have real neurodiversity, it's going to transform everybody around you and force evolution. And that's really beautiful, and it's quite sophisticated position to hold. It's like a lightning rod that wakes everybody up, demanding more connection through support, demanding more compassion through support, and then amplifying wherever that super ability is and charting new path for that. And that's that's the different camps.
It might be a bit of a stretch, but this might be the point where I can bring in my absolute favorite bit about Easter this year. You know, we're recording this episode on Easter Monday, and every year there's something in the story of Easter that really, really speaks to me so directly. Like, it feels like it's been written to be read by Leela in this moment. And this year, it's really about how essential our wounds are. So let me see if I can bring this point across. Like, in the story of Easter, on Good Friday, Jesus was crucified, and he was crucified after a trial where he was accused of blasphemy because he didn't deny to be the Messiah, the savior figure in Judaism. So he was condemned, and then he got nailed to the cross with nails through his hands and feet. And then his dead body was put in a tomb by his disciples, and a massive rock closed the tomb. And the whole time his disciples were like, but what the fuck? Like, why aren't you doing anything to prevent this? You're the Son of God. Clearly, there's no need for you to die like this, to die at all. Basically, they said, this should not be like this. This should be different. And I also hear God should be different. Like, definitely not let yourself be crucified. But then we get to another really interesting part of the story. Like 3 days later, after crucifixion, the rock was pushed aside, the rock that was closing the tomb, and the grave was empty. It was actually the women who discovered this, that, he had risen, the sort of the core of Christianity, that he was resurrected. And the disciples, they didn't recognize him at first. They only recognized him when they saw his wounds in his hands and feet. Before that, they didn't get it. They didn't recognize him. So what you're saying, Kieran, what we're saying in this episode is that this diverse wiring of a brain can be such a treasure. It can be such an enrichment for your own life and for the life of the people around you. And that is what I'm reading in this story about Jesus' wounds and the whole story. It is essential that they're there. They're part of the richness of this myth of resurrection. And it isn't the unworthy story of, the belief system of unworthy, that story of perfection. It's so inaccurate. Like, God is truly all of life. Also, the darkest, the weakest, the most wounded bits, they're God. And there's no death, so there's no end to God. Okay, so when we stop believing that these wounds shouldn't be here, that they're somehow making us less than or less perfect, it's this deep acceptance that isn't just a yes, it's a deep yes to what is. And that's where the real healing and the real treasure is. Amen. So whether you're actually neurodiverse or just glad to have a diagnosis, like, that's the lightning rod. That's the truth neurodiversity needs for us all to evolve.
So I love this story of Easter because weirdly, I grew up Catholic, but I know nothing about religion. So I love that we have a pastor in our midst. So we have this beautiful story of Jesus, and what's connecting for you is that his wounds are just as much part of the tapestry. So we're not kind of worshipping a being that's perfect or whole. Like, it's sort of, I don't know.
The wounds are part of the wholeness.
Right.
Essentially part of the wholeness. Like, that's gold to me in this moment.
Yeah, it's gold.
Cool. That's landed for me too.
Drop mic moment with the pastor's sermon. Thank you. We'll be back here next week, killing it yet again, creating a whole nother mountain peak for this podcast. We love you, decoders.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. We obviously love hearing what you think. Your feedback helps us make a better show for you to listen to. So feel free to comment, and you can do it at Facebook, which is the Humans Decoded podcast. And if you're not on social, you can always email any questions to us at outreach@kierantrace.com. And thanks for listening. We love you.